Hello, my name is Vicki Wynn and I'm the Family and Consumer Sciences Agent at the Marshall County Extension Office. And today I want to talk to you about the number 2 hobby in the United States. Number 1 hobby is gardening and the number 2 hobby is genealogy. And as you probably know, genealogy is a vast and huge topic. It's something that covers so much area, so much history, so many details. So we sometimes get a little intimidated about where to start. So today I want to talk to you about 5 tips or 5 steps to get organized and get started. And whether you're a beginner at genealogy or whether you're experienced, things are always changing throughout the technology and access to resources. So I want to share with you some of the things that I feel are very helpful in terms of getting started with learning more about your roots, your family tree. The first step is to decide what you want to discover. So some of the questions you might want to ask yourself is, how do I want to start and who do I want to know more about? So you might say, do I want to know more about my mother's side of the family? Do I want to know more about my father's side of the family? Or do I want to know more about my in-laws? Maybe my spouse has never had any interest in family history and you think it would be good to work on that together and learn more about the spouse's family history. So after you've determined which side that you want to learn more about, that's really key in knowing which direction you need to head. So after you've decided that you're going to want to know more about, let's say, your mother's side of the family, that's established. The second step is to explore what is close at hand. So, of course, you're going to start with yourself. You know when you were born, you know where you were born, you know how old you are, you know what your name is. So those are some important pieces that are sort of givens. This is like a big puzzle, and you're going to be trying to find the pieces, fit them together to make the big picture. So after you have started with yourself, you've established that you have all the facts related to yourself, then you want to explore what's close at hand related to your next relative, and that would be your mother. So if your mother is still alive, it's very, very important that you talk to her, that you interview her, and this is whichever relative it is that you've decided to follow down that line of family history. But I can't stress enough how important it is to talk to your family members, ask those questions. There's a workbook, a family tree workbook that is so helpful in helping us to do this. And this book is arranged in easy to follow sections about asking questions and interviewing someone, finding out about what they can recall about their family history. So this is the next step after you've decided who you want to discover more about, and then exploring one of those things that's close at hand would be people who are very, very good resources. And always, always take advantage of talking to those people. Older people I find love to reminisce. They love to talk about their past. They love to talk about when they were younger and the relatives they visited and the places that they visited to see their relatives. So there's just a lot of good information that can be learned from interviewing family members. And in fact, in this workbook, there's a list of questions to ask. So they really take all the work out of trying to think up questions and what are some important things to be sure and find out when we are interviewing our family members. Another local source that we would want to go to is a family Bible. Typically, people are going to write in pertinent information about births and marriages and deaths. And so always don't rule out that the Family Bible can hold a lot of valuable information in terms of trying to fill in some of those missing pieces to our family tree. Photo albums also. Photo albums are going to tell a lot of stories. Pictures do tell stories, and we want to make sure that we have access to family photos, family albums, and I'll show an old family album that belonged to my grandmother's side of the family. Has still a lot of the old photos. So every chance I get, I talk to my mom about who these people are and are they related and how are they related. So all of these kinds of things are very useful tools when we are trying to piece together those pieces to make up our family history. After we've decided, we've explored what is close to us, then we want to do some research about the people that we have discovered. After we've had these conversations, after we have read names in the Family Bible and saw pictures, we want to make sure that we can research about those people to find reliable information. And I want to stress reliable because sometimes when we do our interviews, that person may say, well, I think they were born in maybe 1920 or it could have been 21. And also when you look at the census information, it's going to be not always 100% accurate. So we want to make sure that we're finding accurate information. When we're doing this research, there's a lot of free and also paid sources that we can find information about our family members. There are cemeteries that we can visit because tombstones have a lot of valuable information on them about birth dates and death dates. So we want to make sure that we are finding the exact information that matches up to the people in our family. Findagrave.com is a free source that has millions of grave information. Findagrave.com. And if you go online, all you need to do is put the person's name and the state that they were buried in. If you're not real sure of the name of the cemetery, but this is a site that is populated by volunteers, people who have made photographs of tombstones and uploaded those so that you can find the accurate information related to family members. So findagrave.com is an excellent source of information. It's a virtual cemetery, if you will. Also trips to the cemetery. Sometimes that's not real feasible if you have to travel a far distance. If you are not real sure that you have relatives there in those places, it may be disappointing if you thought you had the information correct, but it turned out to not be. So it's important prior to do the research to make sure that you've gotten as many facts as possible before you actually take a trip or take that next step to maybe validate what information that you have uncovered. Online databases, there are so many programs, there are so many sites. Some are free and some charge a fee, but they all have good information related to family members. They're going to have a lot of birth dates, death dates, military dates information, baptism dates. There's just a lot of family information that can be found on these sites. So as you're piecing together pieces of the puzzle, it's very, very important to consider all of those resources. And again, in the family tree workbook, a good example, it tells you how to log that information and how to organize your information once that you have uncovered some of the things related to your family members. There's a section in here about census records, and it tells about how spellings of names are not necessarily correct in that. An example, my great-grandmother's name was Ida, and my great-grandfather always called her Ider. And when the census was completed, of course it was an oral interview, and the man of the house typically took care of the census information to the census taker, and she's always listed as Ider in the census, but that is not her given name. So you learn a lot as you see that information in some of these databases that may be very similar to the accurate name, but you want to make sure that you're following that person all the way through with the same name. Another thing that I would mention about collecting that information for record keeping is that we want to always use the maiden name of females. We want to make sure that we have documented what name they were given at birth. If you have access to that, it does make it a lot easier to follow through the course of their life. And libraries. Can't stress enough about how much information your local library has. And libraries also would have subscriptions to a lot of the magazines that are helpful in, they have just a lot of information about how to get started. If you're running into a roadblock, maybe with a line of a person or a last name, there's all kinds of resources in the magazines, and I would just strongly recommend that you check with your local library, because they are going to have access to a lot of books, a lot of reference books. They'll have a lot of magazines, and now that we're doing a lot of things virtually, you can even check out books and magazines online and have access to those. So if there's something you really want to know, call your local library. Tell them what it is that you're looking for. And I know some of the larger libraries are now including a genealogy section. So that's exciting that they're able to promote genealogy and also offer the resources that are going to be so helpful in putting your life history or your life story together. They also have access to a lot of databases, and they will allow you to come in and use their computers and access those databases, and they usually have someone who is a specialist in genealogy on site to help you to find what it is you're looking for, or at least to help you get on the right track to finding the information that you need to find. So after you've decided, you've explored, you've researched, and now you have a lot of information, and it's time to get that information organized. So the fourth step that I would stress to keep in mind is to organize your information. And that means whether you've taken notes in a notebook, always have a notebook and a pen on hand. I want to point out about the pens that have archival ink, no acid, the acid-free pens. These are fraud-proof, waterproof, so they are the ones that will stand the test of time, and want to make sure that you use that so it doesn't damage any of the documents you may have in your records, also the photos. And I would also mention photos can be written on the back with a soft leaded pencil. We don't want to use a ballpoint pen or something that's going to scratch into the texture of that photo paper. And I would just about imagine each and every one of you has had experience with finding some old family photos and you have no idea who they are. And you're trying to not only find information related to your family history, but you're trying to discover who those people are and how do they fit into your family. So when you are interviewing and making sure that you're getting all your information together. If you discover who someone is and there's not a name on the back of that photo, soft leaded pencil is the way to go with that. Photos now have more of a slick finish, some of the newer photos. That's when I would recommend a soft marker, and this is one that you don't have to mark very heavy or with much force. So any type of marker that says it is archival safe and acid free, we want to make sure that we're taking the best care that we can with our family resources. We always want to have a notebook on hand, keeping all of our records, and I know I need to write things down to remember them. So it's always a good idea to have a small notebook on hand when you're doing your research, and jot down facts as you learn them. After you are organizing your information, whether it be in a 3-ring binder, and I would point out now we've come a long way in terms of archiving our photographs. So we have the photo pages that are acid-free and archival safe. Always look for that when you purchase something to store photographs in, and also documents. And these sheet protectors also say they're acid-free and archival safe. So they're very minimal cost, especially to protect your investment in your time and efforts and in your family keepsakes that are very, very hard to come by sometimes. So if you're going to organize those in a binder, I would recommend to gather those together, and that you've identified everyone in the photos, and you have a good way to organize those and keep those all together. Sometimes when we are working on our genealogy or working on our family history, it's easy to get sidetracked. And I know sometimes I get excited when I find out new information, and it may take me down another branch on that tree. And it's very, very important to stay close to the line that you're working on so that you can complete it as far as you can go, and make sure that you don't get sidetracked. And maybe you're looking at generations down the line that you're going to have a lot of missing pieces in between. But I highly encourage you to stay within that line and complete all the information that you can. There's also computer software that you can use to organize your facts, your details that you've gathered about your family members, and that's also a good way to organize the information. You can scan photos in, you can scan documents in, you can also scan your notes in and have those in computer files. And of course, a thumb drive, jump drive is, like I said, technology has come a long way, and it's enabled us to keep a lot of information in a very small space. So whether you are choosing to go down the road with paper copies and photographs and documents and so forth, or if you prefer putting everything in a digital form and using it for computer, basically you're working with the same steps, that you want to make sure you've added all that information that you have, that you've kept it all together, and it's accurate and consistent in the way that you have organized it. One of the things, sort of a side note, some of the things you find out when you're doing your research and the information that you do find, it may lead you to a new interest that you didn't even know you were going to find out about. It could be that you learn where your family comes from, what country they came here from. You may learn about your German roots or your Scandinavian roots or European roots. It's really one of those things that opens a lot of doors in finding out, well, when did my family migrate to this area? How did they move around? What brought them here? So like I said earlier, this is just a big family story with a lot of smaller pieces that it takes a while to gather those, organize those. And so we've gone through the deciding who we want to discover about, exploring what is close at hand to us, researching the people, the places, and the things related to our family, and then organizing that information once we found it. And then the fifth step, as we come to the end, is begin it all over again. So after you have gotten as far as you can with that family member or that family group, then it's time to start all over again. But let me stress again, there's a lot of resources available, whether you want to search that through a library or an online database, or if you want to check out the findagrave.com and see the information there. Please call on your library, and there are resource people there who can steer you in the right direction and probably save you a lot of time and energy in terms of piecing those puzzle pieces together. But thank you for joining us today, and I hope you have learned something that will help you get started on your discovery of about your family history. And until next time, I'm Vicki Wynn with the Marshall County Extension Office.